Have you not heard of the opera battle that's being waged at the moment?
Oh, indeed I have, though it seems strange to me to wage a war over that yellow brick brewery on Broadway and 39th Street.
So, what are the best opera houses in New York City? Let's see. The Met, the New York City Opera, Carnegie Hall. Wait a minute, and what about the old Academy of Music, that famous venue of the Gilded Age, the place to see and to be seen? Or better to say, have a private box reserved in your name if you'd like to be counted as someone to reckon with in the city's elite society.
Is that fair?
Now, you're quite right. If it were actually a brewery, someone might hope to get some pleasure from it.
We're proud of our opera, Mr. Wilde.
Old Academy? Never heard of that. Well, imagine that this position was completely the opposite back in the late 19th century, when New York City was living through its celebrated epoch of the Gilded Age. Not only it was the time of unprecedented economic development and prosperity, but also the brutal clash of the old worlds of Knickerbocker aristocrats and new money tycoons. The harsh competition between the bastion of old money, the Academy of Music, and the newly built harbour of the nouveau riche, the Metropolitan Opera, and even a sort of war between their loyal backers, have taken center stage in the second season of the Gilded Age series by HBO.
I wish I could understand the whole thing. You don't even like opera. Not so I've ever noticed.
Curiously, it mirrors the real-life clash between the society queen, Mrs. Astor, and Alva Vanderbilt, the wife of the railroad heir William Kissam Vanderbilt, on whom Bertha Russell is based. You may learn more about these ladies in my dedicated videos, and in this episode, let's unfold the story of the opera snub and how it all actually happened.
The opera is where society puts itself on display, not just in New York, but all over Europe. And the leaders take boxes where they meet each other and their children court each other, and that is how the wheels of society turn.
Well, imagine yourself in the 1880s. You are living in Manhattan, perhaps even have a nice brownstone or a romantic palatial mansion on the corner of Fifth Avenue, attend society gatherings at Mrs. Astor's, and yeah, your name firmly sits on the top of the 400 list by the notorious social arbiter Mr. Ward McAllister. Oh yes, I almost forgot, your family keeps a private box at the reputable Academy of Music, that hallmark of status at that time, where you never miss the premieres of new Verdis and Wagners, display your family's success, showcase your finest gowns and tiaras, build connections, win hierarchical battles, and discuss the latest gossip, of course.
As long as we have no box at the Academy, we are not in the front rank of society, whatever we may pretend.
That's what Carrie Astor says.
Well, she should know. Her mother will have been consulted, and she must have decided to keep us out.
Back then, in 1883, the Academy of Music was celebrating its 29th season as an unrivaled place to be for the sophisticated New York's elite. Not that everyone was always happy about it, not at all. When it just opened in 1854, the critics praised its acoustic triumph, but mocked its interiors, seating arrangement, and overall architecture. The first successful dedicated opera house in the United States often rotated different opera companies, so that the public was offered the best and the most fashionable performances of the day.
And the Academy of Music has served New York society for 30 years. Have they not earned our loyalty?
Yours maybe, but not mine. Not when they won't let me in.
In addition, they used the place for all sorts of things like political rallies, charity events, doubtful masked balls, and even science and industry affairs. One of the critics even called the Academy a real estate venture run by a board of investors seeking the highest rent possible. Harsh? Perhaps. Yet that's the price you pay when you need to entertain your generous patrons and trustees and make sure they won't decide to look around and see what new the city has to offer, since there was something to set your eye on.
There must be room for 2 opera houses in a city like New York.
Nonsense.
You see, at the beginning of the 1880s, the New York social scene was going through a tectonic change. The Knickerbocker aristocracy, which ruled the city until then, rubbed the shoulders with the new money elite, which rightfully claimed their place under the sun of the upper class of those in power. Yet, like it always happens in life, the Conservative Party often missed the right moment to generously squeeze in the newcomers and this way keep their long-established authority.
The Academy must have a list of applicants as long as your arm. And I'm sure Mrs. Astor tried to help.
Are you? I'm not.
The famous American writer Edith Wharton included this passage in her novel The Age of Innocence. On a January evening of the early 70s, Kristen Nielsen was singing in Faust at the Academy of Music in New York. Though there was already talk of the erection above the 40s of a new opera house, which would compete in its costliness and splendor with those of the great European capitals, the world of fashion was still content to reassemble every winter in the shabby red and the gold boxes of the sociable old academy. Conservatives cherished it for being small and inconvenient, and thus keeping out the new people whom New York was beginning to dread and be drawn to.
But there are people on that list who have waited forever. Your day will come, my dear.
Indeed, when the Vanderbilts, Rockefellers, Morgans and others wanted to join the chosen few and have their own boxes in the old opera house, Mrs. Astor, the undisputed head of the New York social ladder, unwisely vetoed this unwelcomed intrusion of carpetbaggers.
You go everywhere. You dine in the best houses. You have a pew opposite the Astors and St. Thomas.
But I haven't got a box at the opera. The Academy's turned us down again.
What a miscalculation it was. The Vanderbilts weren't easy to break either. They came so far for a reason. So, united with other new and even old money power families, they just founded their own Metropolitan Opera Association as an alternative.
We need the Metropolitan, not only for ourselves, but so a great city like New York can have the opera house it deserves.
That was an unheard of and totally unanticipated course of action for the old guard headed by Mrs. Astor.
What? Are you serious? Oh my. How dare they try to steal the Academy's thunder?
As you already know, the Academy was quite savvy when it came to making money. And the rumor has it that in 1880, a newcomer, some say it was William Kissam Vanderbilt himself, well, he even offered to pay $30,000 for a box, an astounding sum equivalent to almost $1 million in today's value.
And he has money, you say?
Oh, lots and lots and lots of it.
Back then, they denied it. And now, when the plans for the Met were announced, they tried to replay the game and admit that they gracefully changed their attitude and would like to add 26 new boxes to the 18 they already had to accommodate the Vanderbilts, the Morgans, the Rockefellers and others who were behind the planned new venue.
Why didn't they see this coming and build more boxes when there was still time?
The Academy has been short-sighted.
But it was too late. I doubt those new tycoons would make it to where they did if they weren't so determined and unforgiving and didn't stick to their own agenda. They represented the future at the end of the day, while the old folks just fading past, pathetically losing its grip.
Besides, nothing stays the same forever, and I can't always be at Mrs. Astor's beck and call.
Why not? I am.
In all, 70 shareholders provided the $1.7 million required to build the land and build the Opera House at West 39th Street and Broadway. It is almost $52 million in today's value.
I don't understand. What does that mean?
I guess it means they have plenty of money at their disposal.
And that's how the celebrated Metropolitan Opera was born in 1883. Twice the size of the Academy, it contained 3 tiers of elegant boxes to display the wealth of the city's new economic leaders. The new Opera House was an instant success with society. Its auditorium with 3,045 seats was the largest in the world. The stage was the 3rd largest, after only the Imperial Opera House in St. Petersburg and the New Opera in Paris.
So the 2 opera houses are to go head-to-head?
That's it. Head-to-head, and one will be the winner.
Opening night began with the performance of Gounod's Faust, the Swedish soprano sensation Christina Nilsson in the role of Margaret.
Giuseppe Del Puente, Andrea Romano, Italo Campanini, Roberto Stagno, and of course the great Christina Nilsson, who will perform on the opening night.
The Nation newspaper stated, "The Temple of Wealth has been opened," and the perfect emblem of that was Alva Vanderbilt herself, who led the family in gorgeousness. As I've said, she's the obvious inspiration behind Bertha Russell from the Gilded Age series.
I begin to grasp your plan, and you seem to have won the first battle.
I intend to win the war.
That night she wore a white satin dress so embossed with pearls she seemed covered in them. The Washington Post suggested that the jewels worn by the Vanderbilt women that night were worth $250,000, almost $8 million today.
So you feel the Academy is finished?
It seems to me the Academy wants it every which way. They refuse to build more boxes, and they won't spend the money to secure the best singers, but they don't want anyone else to do so either.
And sic transit gloria mundi, the old Academy of Music quickly went out of authority, lost its opera engagements, and turned into vaudeville. In 1926, its building was demolished and everyone forgot about this place, which is now taken by the Consolidated Edison Company building.
Do you think the new Metropolitan Opera will succeed?
The members of the Academy are very determined it should not.
Not that Metropolitan's own history was without bumps and changing the dress, yet one way or another it is still one of the most iconic and prestigious stages of the world. Now housed at Lincoln Center, it celebrates its 140th anniversary.
I wouldn't like to see you pay the price for backing the losing side.
Well, you're right about one thing, Mrs. Astor. I certainly intend to find myself on the winning side.
I hope you enjoyed this brief overview of the opera war that shaped the social scene of the Gilded Age New York. You will learn more about this period and its main heroes and heroines in my videos inspired by the eponymous series by HBO. Take care and see you soon. Bye!